wanted to overthrow Syria's President Bashar al-Assad. Baal is coming to New York, and the flying saucer has been stolen from the Roswell UFO Museum. This is SkyWatch TV for Monday, March 28th, 2016. I'm Derek Gilbert, and glad to be back. More on the deadly terror attack in Brussels, Belgium last week, Tuesday. The death toll 38, over 300 injured in those attacks at the airport and in the subway. The Islamic State issuing a warning of dark days for those that oppose it, issuing photos ostensibly showing Islamic State fighters handing out candy to children to celebrate the carnage. Well, now investigators have had a week or so to analyze the evidence, and we can draw a couple of disturbing conclusions, perhaps. Last week I speculated that the attack might have been payback, retaliation for the arrest of Salah Abdeslam, one of the main suspects in the deadly Paris attacks from last November. This was speculation, and frankly, all it shows is how little I understand about planning an operation of this sort. Clearly, because he was arrested only a few days before the attack, there was a lot more preparation and planning that went into these attacks than could have been pulled together in a few days. So, experts are speculating that because Abdeslam was caught relatively easily after dodging authorities for 4 months, thanks to Europe's open borders, that perhaps he allowed himself to be captured as a red herring, giving Belgian and French investigators a false sense of security, letting their guard down perhaps, thinking that now we could close this chapter on the deadly Paris attacks and things could return to normal. And then, of course, 72 hours later, 38 people are dead. This leads to a second disturbing point, which is that the number of counter-terror officers in Belgium is outnumbered by the number of suspected Muslim terrorists in Belgium, or jihadists anyway. Experts say that that's partly the reason it took 4 months to find Salah Abdeslam. It's not a matter of competence. The Belgian investigators are skilled investigators. They're just overwhelmed. Brussels is the diplomatic capital of the world, or one of them anyway. It is home to the headquarters for the European Union and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And again, only a few hundred counter-terror officials. The number of suspected jihadists in Brussels alone is in the thousands. Now, Brussels, of course, is where the November attack in Paris was planned. This has hurt international tourism in Brussels. The city's been trying to improve its image since the attack in November. And in January, the city's communication office launched a campaign called #CallBrussels. You could watch on a webcam as people from all over the world called this one particular phone in downtown Brussels and spoke, to average Brussels residents about how safe they feel. What is life really like in Brussels, to counteract the image of Brussels as being a hotbed of Islamic terror. Of course, last week, Tuesday, put that to the lie. And I don't mean to make light of this because it is a tragic situation, but this is what we call tragic irony. And one more bizarre story from Brussels. You may have heard about this. One of the young men serving as Mormon missionaries injured in the attack at the airport there was also at the Boston Marathon bombing 3 years ago, and he was in France while the Paris attacks took place last November. Not in Paris, but in France. 19-year-old Mason Wells of Sandy, Utah, injured in the attacks last Tuesday, suffered a severed Achilles tendon, some cuts, bruises, and some severe burns. He is expected to make a full recovery. Well, another day, another revelation from the email server of Hillary Clinton, that private server that she didn't know was illegal. The State Department has been releasing emails from the server to comply with a court order over the last few months. They usually release these late on Friday night or going into a holiday weekend to avoid media attention. The latest is that Google wanted to help rebels in Syria overthrow Syria's President Bashar al-Assad. Emails exchanged between a Google executive, Jared Cohen, and Hillary's team at the State Department described a new tool that Google had developed that would publicly track defections from the Syrian government and then map them, showing which part of the government they came from. The information they thought would be useful in encouraging others in Syria to defect from the government. Jared Cohen, telling the State Department about this, said that once the tool had been released by Google, Al Jazeera, the news network based out of Qatar, and very anti-Assad government in Qatar, would take ownership of this tool after the launch, track the data, and then broadcast the information back into Syria. What's interesting is that this is not Google's first or only effort into the world of geopolitics. You thought it was just a search engine? No. Cohen is the head of a Google subsidiary called Jigsaw, formerly called Google Ideas, of which Cohen is co-founder. Before joining Google, Jared Cohen served in the State Department under Presidents Bush and Obama on the policy planning staff at the State Department from 2006 to 2010. Cohen was known to use social media as a tool to incite political uprisings. In fact, Cohen reportedly asked the CEO of Twitter to hold off doing regularly scheduled maintenance during the uprisings in Iran in 2009 during their presidential election because activists on the ground were using Twitter to stir up the crowd. So Google, when they hired Jared Cohen to start Google Ideas, knew what they were getting. Somebody with foreign policy experience and connections in the Middle East, connections with activists in the Middle East. The founder of WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, refers to Cohen as Google's director of regime change. Okay, he's also the co-founder of a website called movements.org, which is a public-private partnership between the U.S. State Department and private investors. It offers activists who want to rebel against their governments in other parts of the world an opportunity to get some technical assistance on the QT. This was launched in 2008 at a meeting called the Alliance of Youth Movements, which was essentially a State Department initiative to train activists to rebel against their government with the help of the U.S. Department of State. In 2012, WikiLeaks published an email dump, messages collected from the global security firm Stratfor, which provides confidential intelligence services to multinational corporations. Stratfor had noticed Cohen's activity in what they called foaming, and maybe they meant fomenting, regime change during the Arab Spring. And they concluded that while Cohen was engaging in some very dangerous behavior, stuff that might get him killed, in fact, that he was doing it with the blessing of Google's CEO, Eric Schmidt. So all of this is to make a point that Google, which of course is the most popular search engine on the internet, is part of a bigger holding company called Alphabet, which is heavily invested in artificial intelligence research. The Manhattan Project of AI, according to one expert, is not just a search engine. It is a geopolitical entity that is quite literally trying to reshape the world in which we live, physically and also our perception of it. Frankly, most of us interface with the world through a computer screen. Search engine results shape our perception of reality. Now, think about this. Google collects information from users all over the planet, runs 3.5 billion searches per day, and those searches are all connected to identification information, location information. How might that information, stuff that I want to know when I search the internet, how might that be useful to a future prophesied global government? Now, that is, of course, if the Antichrist to be able to make payroll. We find from a new report that government debt in the 20 largest industrialized countries in the world is 3 times bigger than we thought it was. The problem is government pensions. As baby boomers are aging and taking their retirement, pension liabilities are a ticking time bomb, frankly. Government debt in these nations, which includes the US, UK, Australia, Canada, and so on, was thought to be about $44 trillion. That didn't include the unfunded pension liabilities. When you factor in public pensions, the debt in the 20 largest industrialized nations, $122 trillion. In Roswell, New Mexico, thieves have made off with the flying saucer from the world-famous UFO Museum. The International UFO Museum's surveillance camera, weekend before last, caught 3 men loading the flying saucer into the back of a red pickup truck one early Saturday morning. This UFO used to hang on the side of the museum until it was knocked down by Snowstorm Goliath back in December. Saucer had been mounted at the museum since it opened in 1992. And boy, you never can knock an ancient Canaanite god down for long. Baal, or Baal if you prefer, is coming perhaps to a town near you. And we mean actually a replica of the gateway to the ancient temple of Baal. It's a 50-foot arch that formed the entrance to the temple in the ancient city of Palmyra Now, the Islamic State took Palmyra last year from the Syrian government and blew up the remains of the temple. It was a UNESCO World Heritage Site. But a replica of the gate, produced by a giant 3D printer, will be erected in Times Square in New York in April, and one just like it will be erected in Trafalgar Square in London. This is called a gesture of defiance to the Islamic State. Yeah, that'll show them. It's a project of the Institute for Digital Archaeology. The plan is to create 1,000 of these arches and set them up in cities all over the world. What? Look, it's obvious that the major media does not understand why you and me might have a bit of a problem with this. Baal is a god that Yahweh, the God of the Bible, had issues with going all the way back to the time of Moses, okay? So we're talking a 3,500-year running battle between God and Baal, who was the major deity confronted by the Hebrew prophets in the Old Testament. Even in the New Testament, Jesus was accused of casting out demons with the power of Beelzebul, or Baal, the prince, supposed to be the chief of demons. If you read Matthew 12, verses 22 through 32, you will see that Jesus equates Baal with Satan. So, the temple of Bel in Palmyra, or Baal in Palmyra, was in fact a temple to Satan, whether the people knew it or not. Now, interestingly, it was dedicated, this temple, in the year AD 32, which was just about the time that Jesus was going to the cross. A bit of an early celebration, perhaps, by the God of this world? Well, again, the media types are just looking at the loss of the architecture thanks to the Islamic State. They really don't understand the spiritual implications of what they're dealing with here. As an example, in the New York Times article about this arch being set up in New York City's Times Square, they talked about some of the other world cultural treasures destroyed by the Islamic State. And they mentioned the Lamassu from the city of Nineveh, which is just across the river from Mosul, which is the Islamic State's capital in Iraq. The Lamassu was a supernatural guardian, often positioned outside the gates to a city or outside the gates of the king's palace. In particular, the ones at Nineveh were outside the palace of the Assyrian king Sennacherib, who's mentioned in the Old Testament. It's a winged bull with the torso of a man and a bearded face, and described by the author of the article in the New York Times as a reflection in sculpture of the imperial ambitions of King Sennacherib. No, totally wrong. The Lamassu represented the cherubim. These were supernatural entities you didn't want to mess with. And as it happens, we happen to have an expert on the cherubim here on SkyWatch TV staff, the author of Cherubim Chariots, Josh Peck.
The Lamassu and Shadu were actually very feared supernatural creatures in the ancient past from a lot of Near Eastern cultures. Actually, even in the Bible, it talks about these creatures, though maybe not by that specific name, but by description. We read about them in Revelation 9. They're actually described as locusts. They're extremely powerful, and because they were so feared, a lot of kings and rulers of that time in the ancient past, they would put them on their they would put statues of them on their palaces right underneath the pillars of the main entrance. The Lamassu and Shadu, one being the male, one being the female. So yeah, these were bad dudes that no one would want to mess with.
If you haven't read his book Cherubim Chariots, you should. Josh Peck, explaining why the Lamassu are to be considered more than just a graphic representation of the ego of the ancient king Sennacherib. Well, it is because we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities and powers and rulers of spiritual darkness that we do this program and everything that we do here at SkyWatch TV. This week, we continue our discussion with L.A. Marzulli, author of the new book, Days of Chaos, and the new DVD presentation, Watchers 9, Days of Chaos. We'll talk about the giants. We talk about the world events that are leading L.A. to conclude that we're in the final days. Things are chaotic around the world, but that means our redemption draweth nigh. You get a chance to see the program multiple times this week. Today on the Victory Television Network down in Arkansas and around the Memphis area. Tomorrow, we got a whole bunch of places where you can see SkyWatch Television, and we will run through the schedule list for Wednesday and also Saturday here on your screen. If you want specifics, dates and times where you can see SkyWatch TV, log on to skywatchtv.com, and then in the very top menu bar there, click the link that says Channel Listing, and that will take you to a complete breakdown. And of course, SkyWatch TV is available now on demand on the SkyWatch TV channel on Roku. If you've not yet added SkyWatch TV to your Roku account, please do so. If you need instructions, you'll find them at skywatchtv.com/Roku. For a portable option, audio only, check out the SkyWatch TV podcast. You can carry it around in your smartphone, your tablet, your MP3 player. The link there in the top menu bar at skywatchtv.com. Look for podcast, and then from there, click the link to subscribe, and the audio files for every program will automatically download to your computer, and then you can transfer those to a portable device to listen while you work. There is a video option for the Rocky Mountain International Prophecy Conference, which is a good thing because it is, in fact, sold out, but you get a chance to see all of the speakers in the comfort of your own living room this summer. The Rocky Mountain International Prophecy Conference, main ballroom and Aspen Room presentations. For information on the available packages and to sign up, log on to prophecywatchers.com. Your support is key to us here at SkyWatch TV, and during the month of March, while supplies last, this very timely DVD, America's Courts, Progress and Peril, and a keepsake wall plaque, our gift to you for your support of $20 or more during the month. For information and to donate, log on to skywatchtv.com/donate. And of course, you can help us a great deal just by clicking on these various places on the internet. Click share, click like, click subscribe to the official YouTube channel, and that helps SkyWatch TV spread the word. And if you've got a curiosity about what I do on the internet, you'll find my stuff at these places here. My email address always open for your comments, questions, and suggestions. And thank you for the notes of support and concern over the weekend. As you can tell, I'm not back to 100%, but feeling a lot better than I did Friday and Saturday. That's for sure. In fact, this bug was going around the place here. We began to call it the crane contagion, but I think we've got it contained. So meanwhile, D. Gilbert at skywatchtv.com when you have something you'd like to share with me. And thank you for watching as we keep watch. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is SkyWatch TV.
From the time she was little, Nita dreamed of horses. Every childhood fantasy rode on the back of a heroic white steed, coming to save the day.
I don't know how long I've had this love in my heart for horses. It's just always been there. And when we were little girls, my sister and I would play all day long. I was always the white horse and she was always the little pink pig.
Let's pretend Lightning and Rosie can fly.
But everything changed in a heartbeat. On December 9th, 1971, a tragic car accident claimed the life of my dad and my best friend and my little sister. And I wondered after that if there was anything left to believe in.
Move aside, let the ambulance through. Please move aside.
As a child of 13, I felt like I had lost practically everything. And I wondered, is this it? I mean, where do I go from here? I could not have imagined back then how God could use horses, of all things, to restore my faith and vision for the future.
Starting April 19th, get your copy of Nita Horn's inspirational new book, No Fences, and learn for the first time her amazing story of loss, survival, determination, and healing. How the vision and love God gave her for these beautiful and majestic animals eventually led to the 150-acre Whispering Ponies Ranch, a general retreat facility, as well as a premier training location that specializes in using and gifting therapeutic animals to benefit the herding. Other care facilities, schools, and ministries across the nation.
When God puts something in your heart, it's there for a lifetime.